his assistance in putting together this little presentation. We want to thank Pam Chamberlain. She, like George said, we had done this presentation on the Fairmont in January, and so Pam took us out to the Butte Airport. We have a lot of memorabilia out there. She took us for a tour of the Butte National Airport hangar, which is still out there. That's the one that Lindbergh used back when. And so thanks, Pam, for your assistance.
Thank you.
Many of the photographs that we're using are from the Smithers collection, and much of the information came from early newspaper articles from the Butte Miner and the Anaconda Standard, and from papers compiled by Dr. Harvey Caspear. Dr. Caspear was an ophthalmologist in Butte, and he was also a pilot, and he was very interested in aviation. It should be noted from the outset that George and I are not aviators, and we only want to present a brief history on the aviation in Butte. The earliest quote-unquote aviation feat that we discovered was by a fellow named George Lowry. And George was born in 1885 in Homestead, about 10 miles east of here. George was a balloonist, and he did many balloon exhibitions in the early years. Besides he himself parachuting, this is taken over at Columbia Gardens. Besides he himself parachuting from his balloon, he also had a team of parachute jumping monkeys. And he would release also a flock of white leghorn chickens from high in the air with prize tags on their legs. And then the kids would run around and pick them up and bring them up to the podium, and with a certain number they'd get a prize. In 1908, at a 4th of July miners celebration in Basin, Montana, it's about 30 miles north of here, the balloon caught on fire. And it drifted across the small town and landed on a bakery. And it burnt the bakery and it burnt the balloon. And that was that. Lowry passed away in Butte in 1965. Officially, the Wright brothers achieved power flight in December 17, 1903, but in 1909, a Butte man by the name of Edward Dawson built and flew the first airplane in Montana. Edward had no known access to airplanes or to people with experience in aeronautics before building his triplane. He is said to have learned about flight and what he needed to design his airplane from books and magazines. The triplane was built of spruce, and the wings were covered with Sea Island cotton. I don't know what that is, but Sea Island cotton. It had a wingspan of 25 feet. It was 20.5 feet long. It weighed 750 pounds. And it had 2 Detroit Aero 4-cylinder engines in it, each generating about 35 horsepower. The flight distances reported ranged from 50 to 100 feet. Mr. Dawson's flying days ended after his plane was catastrophically damaged, and due to a lack of economic resources, it took his family until the mid-1930s to pay off the debt from the airplane project. In the late 1800s, Marcus Daly, one of Butte's copper kings, built a horse racetrack in East Butte, out where East Junior High is about where it was. It was a sizable venue, and up until about 1919, the early aviators used it as a landing strip. And among them was an aviator by the name of Eugene Eli, who in the spring of 1911 he came to Butte with his plane, a Curtiss biplane. The plane was brought to Butte by rail and was assembled in Butte for the event. According to the Butte Miner, 8,000 people showed up to watch him fly to an altitude of about 7,800 feet. The next year, a man, this is what occurs with biplane looks like. The next year, in July 1912, a man by the name of T.T. Maroney, also flying a Curtiss biplane, flew from Grayson Hot Springs, which is now called Fairmont, at an altitude of 2,000 feet above the ground in 14 minutes, and he landed at the racetrack out here east of Butte. The first mention of a real airfield, however, in Butte was in the spring of 1919. And it was a private field called the Marr Field, and was located out near where the Butte Country Club is. It was very close to the north end of Butte's current main runway, 3315. In 1920, a man by the name of Jack Lynch, who was from Billings, and he later moved to Butte, started the Inland Empire Aero Training Corporation, which was Butte's first attempt at an airline service. The plan was to fly service between Billings and Butte, and ultimately to several other places. And their first aircraft was a 3-engine K-6 Curtiss. And shortly thereafter, the Marr Field became known as the Butte National Airport. And then on September 6, 1927, Charles Lindbergh flew into Butte, and he landed at the Butte National Airport. It was through the efforts and invite of Jack Lynch, a friend of Lindbergh's, and J.D. Ryan, chairman of the board of the Anaconda Company, that Lindbergh spent several days in Butte. So there's Butte National Airport. That's that same hangar that Pam has out there on display. And there's some pretty nice pictures of Lindbergh and stuff. The following year, in 1928, the National Park Airways announced that they were going to start flying between Salt Lake and Great Falls via Butte. But they felt that they needed a better facility than the Butte National Airport. Remember, that was a private field, the Marr Field. A Butte businessman by the name of James Rowe put together a plan to buy 400 acres where the Burt Mooney Airport is now located. The city of Butte donated an additional 80 acres, and a man named J.D. Ryan, who was chairman of the board of the Anaconda Company, put up $25,000 to purchase the land. And the work started on the airport shortly thereafter. And by July 1929, the runways were in place. They weren't paved, but they were in place. Aviation in America in the 20s was in a frenzy mode, and Butte was no exception. The National Parks Airway began construction on their new hangar, and it was completed shortly thereafter. The Butte Aircraft Corporation was formed by Burt Mooney, John Fox, and Jack Lynch. And the business sold airplanes and flying lessons. Their original office was in the old Cleveland School on Elizabeth Warren Street. George and I also ran across several photographs in the Smithers collection where they actually built airplanes in Butte. Some of the old warehouses, they had the structures out and the guys were stretching the fabric over the wings and the fuselage. So they, I don't know exactly where that took place, but it was somewhere here in Butte. So they had the original office of the old Cleveland School. They also had a hangar at the new airport. Jack Lynch had given flying lessons to Lindbergh. So there's where the connection came from. Lindbergh had started out as an aviation mechanic in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he did barnstorming in Montana. He performed parachute jumps and other barnstorming activities with Jack Lynch. They were good friends, and this is one of the reasons for coming to Butte. Bert Mooney learned how to fly from Jack Lynch, and he sold airplanes and flight instruction in Butte through the Butte Aircraft Corporation, and then he went to work as a pilot for the National Park Airways in 1932. So we got us up to about the early 1930s, and George is going to take us from there.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to take us from 1930 to 1971. We could have went a lot farther, but we'd be here for weeks. I can't believe we're talking for weeks. So. Okay, February 1st, 1930, American Express was inaugurated. And I don't know if you can see it or not. Now remember the date, 1930. It says they were delivering Becker's Best Beer. When Croatia get over 1933? February 12th, 1930, 2 weeks after that, Eddie Rickenbacker visited Butte. Eddie Rickenbacker came to Butte as a sales representative for the Fokker Airplane Company. So we have a lot of history here. June 22nd, 1930, the National Park Airways was established in Butte. And here is a schedule, or price schedule of their the schedule of their prices, excuse me. One way from Butte to Helena was $7. Round trip was $10.50. Butte to Great Falls, one way was $16.50, and round trip was $24.75. Yeah, but still, at those prices back then, that's probably. In the 30s, the Adcock radio range arrived. It emitted a beam of radio signals, and when you were on course, you received a steady sound in your earphones. It was just a steady drone. If you got off to the left side, it would go bop, 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 bop. If you got off to the right side, you would get babbit, babbit, babbit. And when you got over the beam, you were in the cone of silence. There was nothing. So that's how they navigated instrument approaches in Butte. And I read someplace else in there too that if it was foggy and things, that the person in the control tower would radio the pilot and tell him, rev your engine, and that would tell him where he was at. Then he would tell him to cut the engine. Then he says, okay, and he would lean out of the tower to hear this motor, and it would tell him it was safe to land. So next time you fly into Butte, think about that.
The guy has to hear.
Yeah. And this location on this was up by Grayson Hill up there. And it's still up there. In 1930, August 23rd, 1930, the Seattle to Chicago Air Derby took place. The Butte Airport was a leg of this race. Nick Mammer flew his Sturman, powered by a Wright whirlwind motor from Butte to Billings in 1 hour and 47 minutes. And I was fortunate to be able to get a drawing of that this summer at Twin Bridges at the airport. November 9th, 1930, E.B. Christopher, sales manager for Curtis Wright, brought the latest cabin monoplane to Butte. The 6-place cabin plane cruises at 143 miles an hour and sells for $12,800. Seahawk stunt flyers. This plane was a Curtis XF7C-1, and the Seahawks were out of Seattle, so that's where the name Seattle Seahawks comes from. And on May 20th, 1933, Lieutenant D.W. Tommy Tomlinson was the leader of the Seahawks, the famous trio of Navy stunt flyers. He was in Butte to observe the Butte pilots and check out their future talents, and they were recruiting people for their air show. October 23rd, 1933, Northwest Airlines comes to Butte, and the plane that they used was a Lockheed 10A. November 23rd, 1934, the new lighting project at the Butte Airport begins. A revolving beacon will attract night flyers. Pilots will find landing at night as easy as it is in daylight hours with boundary markers and runway lights. And that beacon is still out there. I just took that picture this spring, this winter out there. Is it still operational, Pam?
It is.
It's still. How many people remember going to the Motorview Drive-In and watching that thing go?
Is that the one that was just listed in the National Register?
That's at Coppertown, actually, over by Gregson.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was up on the East Ridge.
There's one there too. There's like 5 in the state.
Yeah. I bet they're all part of the same
They have median candle power rating at the
So that would be a historic structure. Structures and objects can be listed in the National Register.
It revolved into an interview in 10 seconds.
Hmm?
In 1936, Western Airlines purchased National Park Airways. Western Airlines was originally called Western Air Express. In 1936, with one of the runways extending north of south, is 5,200 feet, 80 feet long, 1 mile. The other northwest-southwest runway is 4,400 feet long. Both are 400 feet wide and were the largest in the territory. And at that time, in 1936, Butte had more airplanes registered, private airplanes registered than Salt Lake City. And Butte was also the distribution point of the Northwest for airplanes, engines, and parts. In 1937, the airmail service comes to Butte. This is a 1938 aerial photo of the Butte runway 1533, and that's looking south. So towards the Highlands. On May 11th of 1941, Butte Airport is upgraded to a Class 3 airport. I don't know how classifications of airports runs, but I guess that was a pretty high classification at that time. And the 3 runways were now at 5,560 feet long and 500 feet wide. How long are they now, Pam? Do you have any idea?
Well, the main runway is 9,000 and the crosswind is 5,500.
Okay. So it's growing a little bit.
A little bit.
September 19th, 1948, Omni arrives. That is the new navigation aid called a VOR. And that's still the same tower that's up there, or is it been?
It's a different one,
It's
but
a
we
different
still
one,
operate
but it's
VOR.
similar to that, isn't it?
Yes.
You can see it as you go to Fairmont. And this stood for very high frequency Omni radio. Have to replace it. Plus, if you ever notice when the planes fly out of Butte, major airlines, when they fly out, they come north and go south from there. The reason for that is the pilots pick up that signal from there, then it directs them to Salt Lake City. I always thought, why didn't they just ever fly just straight south? It'd be easier, but that's the reason they have to fly there, go there to pick up that signal. These are some pictures of the planes of the 1940s. The 1940s Boeing Stratoline and the Douglas DC-3, which all came into view. Some of the private planes, the 1940s Beech D-35 Bonanza, and the 1940s Piper Cub. Is there any airplane aficionados in here? Or sure. The tail baffles me on that. It's
Yeah, that's,
instead of a rudder,
they made a conventional version as well, but V-tail real famous for Bonanza airplane, just, fairly good idea, cut down on drag a little bit,
Uh-huh.
you know, a little less material.
Why did they make
They did, they still have. Yeah. I don't know that they make new ones anymore, but there's.
good. I'm glad you're here, so if you have anything to interject, please do so.
Let's see.
Like Bob says, we're not aviation people, so have an interest in it. Okay, November 7th, 1950. Northwest Airlines Flight 115 from Helena to Butte crashed on the East Ridge off the Continental Divide at 8:15 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. The wreckage was spotted at 9 o'clock on November 8th. the next morning. All 22 people on board, 4 crew members and 22 passengers were killed. That isn't the plane, but it's similar to that. There's a picture of the wreckage from it that was in one of the newspapers. The weather conditions were cloud with snow showers. The aircraft of Morton 202 struck the eastern slope 30 feet below the crest at an elevation of 8,250 feet. I was able to find a picture of this wreckage. It was in the archives collection. Somebody had given a brown bag lunch on this a few years back, but I didn't, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their names to give them credit, but it has been a presentation done on that before. In 1951, the Western Air flew their first DC-3 airliners into Butte. And I kind of find this interesting. It says Western Air on the plane and Northwest Airlines on the page. Okay, this was in the 1950s. Anybody recognize that gentleman on the record? Yeah, Johnny Stevens, Johnny on the record. That's how they replaced. That's the United States Air Force plane there. It's Air Force mechanics. That's how they did it. 1958, dated this picture, but in 1956, the Butte Airport was operated as a municipal field by the city of Butte. In August of 1956, Silver Bow County took over management. And in July of 1959, the north-northwest and south-southwest runways were extended 1,300 feet to a limit of 6,857 feet. Now here's an aerial view of Butte in 1960. You're looking north. I don't know, it's kind of blurry, but there's Row Road. Airport is here. Harrison Avenue. Central Business District, uptown Butte. Centerville, Walkerville. There's Floral Park. Oh, that's Silver Bow Park. Things have changed a little bit since then. The pit's a little bit bigger. In 1961, the construction of the new airport started. And on June 3rd, 1961, the new terminal was completed at a cost of $285,000. What did the new one cost? This one?
$10.5 million.
And worth every penny of it, right?
Absolutely.
Has everybody been out there? Check it out. This is awesome. 1963, the two major airlines of Butte were Western Airlines and Northwestern Airlines. Between the two carriers, they had 8 flights a day. October 12, 1964, LBJ and Air Force One landed in Butte. 1965, the Butte Airport only had 2 employees, Art Korn and Angelo Petroni. How many employees do we have now?
6.
6.
So which one is the smoke one?
Pardon?
So which one was driving?
I don't know. Actually, this is state of Montana.
State of Montana.
Yeah, and I don't know if they, contracted that out or not. I'm not sure they did. On September 7th, 1968, Western Air brings jet service into Butte. And I'm gonna put you on the spot. You know what they call that plane? Flank's God.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Do you know what the nickname of that plane was? That Boeing 737, the first one?
Fred Albert.
Right.
And Albert?
Yeah. And that was because of the 3x3 fuselage width and the short body. But when we gave this presentation out of Fairmont, we also found out that the Blue Angels C-130 transport plane that they use is also nicknamed Fat Albert too. So. Okay, this is in the 1970s. In 1970 and 1940, Maxim fire truck owned by Meterville and later sold to the McQueen Fire Departments was purchased by the airport for a price of $1. What's the new one cost now?
Our last one was 589,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little bit different. But later in 1974, 2 fire trucks costing $167,000 were purchased. This is present day, and in October 1972, the Silver Bow County Airport name was changed to the Butte Airport. And that's about it for our presentation. It's kind of short and sweet. Like I said, we could have went on for a long time. Anybody have any questions?